All right, so welcome everybody to the sprint review of the platform development teams. We will have a 1 hour session where we talk about the technical updates, demos, and any progress we made in the past 2 weeks. We have 5 teams here, and please feel free to reach to ask your questions in the comment section below. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the very end of this session, this 1 hour. And if you have any feedback, let us know. So without further ado, I give it to the Tenderdash team. Nima.
Hi, I will give you a quick update on the Tenderdash. My name is Łukasz and I am a member of the Tenderdash team. So basically we are working on one very big project, which is same block execution. I think Dima explained in more details a few weeks ago what is it all about, but basically what we want to do is to execute the block without delay. Right now we have a delay of 1 block before like changes in the block are affect the system state, and now we are changing the to same block execution so that the block that is minted, that is generated, will be effective just after it was generated. So this is a big effort. Right now we are getting to a point where we can share with the Drive team to start, let's call it alpha level integration between Drive and Tenderdash, and see how it all works, get some feedback from Drive developers. So that's where we are right now. And also we have a pending work item on backporting remaining code of Tendermint 036. Tendermint 036 was deprecated, and basically that code base that is in master branch right now is abandoned, but there were some changes that might be useful for us, so we just backported that, and it was reviewed, and we are just moving very slowly on that because this is not our priority and our focus right now. And that's more or less where we are right now, and we go according to the plan. Yeah, and in the next few weeks we want to do the first pre-release of same block execution. As I already mentioned, we want the Drive team to give us some feedback and to start their work on this version. And we still need to stabilize that one same block execution. It's planned for at least, I think, 2 sprints at this point, but to get fully stable solution, it will take a bit more time of testing afterwards and stabilization, because basically we are changing the logic of Tenderdash, and we are debugging and doing a hard fork from Tendermint. So the behavior will be much different than what Tendermint is doing right now. And of course, we have that pending backport that we want to finalize before going forward. And that's it on Tenderdash side.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Let's move on with the Grovedb. Sam?
Yeah, sure. So what we worked on mainly in Grovedb was the continuation of fees. I'll be presenting pretty much Grovedb this week. And for those who don't know, I'm Samuel Westridge, CTO at Dashboard Group. So there have been in our roadmap pretty much two things that we had left in Grovedb that needed to be completed for it to be somewhat done. Well, 2 plus 1. The plus 1 is we have to create bindings for light clients. but that's more of a infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, our internal development infrastructure task, it's not really writing a new feature. Yeah, so one of them was tree references, one of them was costs, and one of them, yeah, as I said, were these bindings. The tree references, Wisdom worked on it at the beginning of the sprint, and basically we had a few talks about it, and then eventually we decided that there was an easier way that we could do this, because tree references could have taken quite a lot of time. I'll quickly explain to those that are interested why we decided to put them back. A tree reference basically is a part in our tree that would refer to another tree. And this would allow, in a Merkleized structure, by the way, this would allow specialized types of queries that were not allowed to happen before. But we realized that we could accomplish almost the same type of queries a little bit less efficiently, but with a lot less effort spent on this. So eventually we most likely will do tree references to gain on the efficiency, but it's really not something that we wanted to spend a month on right now. Some of the hard parts of tree references are really if, let's imagine you have, you have the top of your tree here. Let me see if I can do a tree structure. And then it goes down, and then under each one of my fingers, there's another thing. And then this one refers to up here. This refers to up here. I hope everybody loves my beautiful hand designs. The problem
Everybody loves it.
You can get into a somewhat of an infinite tree reference where you have, let's say, node A, and underneath node A, you have node 1, and under node B, you have node 2. If 2 refers to A, and underneath A, you had 1, and 1 refers to B, you start having this like kind of X type tree referral that goes like this, and basically creates an infinite loop. And we found ways to solve that, but it's just complicated code design, introducing of extra features, and at the moment we really want to release as soon as possible. So let's not add another complicated thing to the mix. So we decided to do that post initial version, and we found an easier way to accomplish the same thing for right now, with a little bit higher cost in bytes. Okay, cool. So let me move on to costs. That's something that I've been working on pretty heavily on this sprint, and Wisdom has been helping me in reviews and also in verification that I haven't done something horrible. And so, for example, like we will find a cost for a certain operation, and then Wisdom will verify that cost by going through all the code to make sure that there hasn't been anything left out. We really have to make sure that there is no basically free operation in our network that can create a denial of service attack. So we've been working pretty hard on that. If you're interested, last week we had inserts done. Updates had not been started yet, deletes had not been started yet, and batches was in progress. At the moment, batches is pretty much in review, updates is in review, and deletes are currently in progress. So there's been progress here. And I'm going to kind of explain some of the difficulties that I ran into over the last 2 weeks. So next slide, please. Yeah, so there have been a few problems, and these might be very interesting to our audience, mostly because they explain some cool features of our system. So let's imagine that you have a contract, right? And you have a certain value in your contract. Let's say you have a car and your car is red. Red is RED, that's 3 characters, and each character represents 1 byte. So you basically have 3 bytes. Now let's imagine you modify this value, a red, and you put it at, somebody give me a color. Color.
Blue.
Blue. Okay, so that's an extra byte. So an extra byte will be added to the system. And what does that mean? Well, you have to pay for an extra byte added to the system based off of the current costs per byte of your current epoch, not of the epoch in which the original element was added. And I think people can start understanding why costs are so complicated and have taken so long. So yeah, and if bytes are added, it's somewhat simple. At the beginning of every element or every item that's in the system, there are specific flags that explain how many bytes are in each epoch. So in this situation, 3 bytes, red, are in, let's say they were added at epoch 0, and 1 byte, extra byte for an extra byte for blue, since it's 4 instead of 3, is added at let's say epoch 1 later. An epoch, by the way, for those wondering, is a unit of time in platform where all costs in the system are the same, and they're determined as 18.25 days in platform at the moment. I think we'll probably be sticking with that value. So every 18.25 days, it is possible that costs could change. Often they don't, and often they change once per year, but they could change based on epochs. Also, every 18.25 days, storage costs are distributed to masternodes. So masternodes get rewarded for their hosting. So added, we've kind of figured out how to do. That's great. Now removed, we've also figured out how to do, but it wasn't simple. Storage flags also explain how much stuff are in the system, but the removed bytes need to be subtracted from the flags. So let's imagine that your color was orange. That's a little bit, ORANGE. That's 6 bytes, if I can add properly. And then you switch to cyan, right? So that is 4 bytes. So you're removing 2 bytes from the system. You need to be reimbursed for those 2 bytes. So basically, what you need to figure out where those 2 bytes came from, what epoch. Let's say they came from epoch 0, but you're on epoch 15. Well, then you decide, well, you don't decide. The user that makes their storage smaller gets reimbursed for the amount of storage value remaining for those items. So if you're on epoch 15, you do pay for those 2 bytes between epoch epoch 0 and epoch 15. And then from epoch 16 till the end of time, you get the value reimbursed, and they get returned to you from storage pools, and then you get credited as the user for the amount of the value. So this is actually in the process of being implemented. We've mostly done it on the Grovedb side, and now we have to credit users and basically, yeah, give back stuff to users and remove them from pools. Okay, so here is another problem that we were facing. We need to update the storage flags, but the costs are decided actually at the storage level, not at the level that have access to the flags. So what we did is we created a new system called just-in-time storage flag updates, where Drive basically passes a function all the way down to Merc that calls itself back all the way up to Drive that can modify the bytes at cost computation time. So, for example, if the value it gets 2 bytes bigger, the storage flags that basically the value has inside of them has to modify itself. Whereas the storage element, Merc, doesn't actually know how to do that. So it basically has to piggyback back up to drive, which will explain the change of storage flags, which then can explain to the system how to take costs and return costs to users. There is one thing to note, an extra complication, if this was not complicated already enough. This can happen twice, because when you update the storage flags, you could potentially, like the storage flags can get bigger. So, you know, a value stored in bytes for the storage flags can increase, and the storage flags itself increasing can then increase the size of the storage flags. So it can happen twice. Actually, it can happen multiple times, because it's up to the client to determine how they want to modify the storage flags. However, Drive will do that in one go. So realistically, the update will only happen one time, one extra time at max. Anyways, that was very technical. It was very technical because I wanted to kind of impart on everybody listening my horrible struggles over the last 2 weeks. This was insanely complicated stuff, and I'm very happy that we have something at least somewhat working, and I'm really hopeful that it actually does work. So we have tests in Grovedb, but we didn't yet plug the system into RS Drive. So now we have to plug it in and actually run it against real use cases, not just tested use cases. We also have to, you know, as I said, delete and updates, they make things smaller. So we have to remove value from the various epoch storage structures, and then we have to return those that amount to users. And it's actually even more complicated because, for example, in batches, you might be removing bytes over various users and at the same time, because every element in the system has a specific owner of that element, and return costs need to be given back to the users that actually created specific elements. So that's that's another difficulty. Okay, cool. So delete in batches. Yes, and we also have to work on putting the deletes into batches. That's been pushed back for a lot of time. And what that means is basically when you delete values at the moment, it deletes up the tree, but all of those operations are not yet batched. And that is one other thing that needs to happen. Okay, and with that, I will go on to SDK. I hope nobody in the audience hates themselves after hearing all of that.
Thank you very much. Igor?
Hey, everyone. My name is Igor. I'm engineer at SDK team. And for some reason, I don't see presentation. Yes, there it is. Now I do. I had to click on a button. So this sprint, we continued working on chain synchronization process. Let's switch to the next slide. Yeah, so the first bullet point that Mark has done is that we adapted new logic to existing tests and workflows with platform. which basically means that all existing tests for all the projects within the platform scope are working in CI. And finally, we proceeded to peer review and QA of the first steps. We increased coverage with new unit in integration tests up to 90% from planned. And yeah, this is basically what was going on this sprint. Let's proceed to next steps. Yeah, so the next challenge would be to actually ensure that the wallet refined synchronization process works properly with the storage. We have to do some documentation updates because new kinds of events were introduced to the wallet library. In particular, those are progress events for the synchronization, so that front-end applications could actually display progress bars while wallet is synchronizing. Then the next big boss is testing of the with the platform test suite on testnet to make sure that everything is actually working there. And after that, we shall proceed with the consensus rules fine-tunings and the rest chain related things, chain synchronization related things like reorgs, chain logs, and so on and so forth. This is it from my side.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Igor. Let's move on to the protocol. Protocol had a sprint goal to release vTrain 3 for testnet, but unfortunately it is not unblocked because of the worst case costs are still in progress. So there are some other things that we made some improvements though. And I pass it to Javid.
Hello, Javid is here from protocol team. Thanks, Balázs, for covering our problem with sprint goals. So this sprint, we've been doing work as a continuation of withdrawal state transitions we did in the previous sprints. And this is a work on putting the withdrawal transactions into the queue in a REST drive as a part of the state tree. And the work is close to be finished, although it isn't. You're not seeing done, and it's my fault. I'm sorry for that. I'm trying. And the next, this is preceding our work on signing those transactions. And that's basically the whole update from my side. I should pass it to Ivan, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Javid. Hello, everyone. I'm Ivan Shumkov. So I would like to share the rest of updates. Previous sprints, we started to work on the HTTPS for DAPI, how we call it this task, to support HTTPS connections from browser, and we continue to work on this. This sprint, 3 tasks are done. First of them is to move the Dashmate comments from the original Dashmate repository to the monorepo we have for platform and adopt it for the version 23, actually 24. And it works, it's in review. There are some comments, we're working on them. The next step is to, instead of having the separate command to obtain certificate, we should set up this certificate during the node setup. So during when you run the Dashmate setup command, you will see something like a wizard, when you can answer to the questions like what type of certificate you want to use, either obtain it from their SSL service and provide API key for that, or set the own certificate files, or like generate self-signed certificate, which will be used only for testing purposes. Later, we will add more providers for the certificates, for sure. And the third task is to support certificates attached to the DAPI on the client side in DAPI client. So DAPI client should be able to work with the nodes without certificates. It's only, again, only for local network or testing purposes, with the self-signed certificates and so on. So all this work in review, as I said already, and the next step will be to automatically to implement the helper, which will automatically renew certificate. It will be the last task. Also, we worked on the bindings for our BLS library with the Rust binding, and so we will be able to use the BLS signatures in our Rust projects and also in the iOS and potentially other products what we're producing. And we're having progress here, some test code, and now we're on the stage when we adopting our code with the first consumer. It's a iOS application. So we're working closely with mobile team on this. Yeah, so there is a light in the tunnel. Yeah. So what's next? We're going to continue to work on the fee system. So we have the fee calculation in the REST. And for that, we need the worst case calculation in Grovedb. So fortunately, guys are close to finish this work. And we'll continue to work with withdrawals, what Javid mentioned, and accomplishing the BLS Rust binding, and continuation of the work on the HTTPS for DAPI. And I hope release platform 23 eventually, when we have everything there. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
I would like to add one little thing. We're not so close on the fee on the fee system. There is a ridiculous amount of work still needed, and I feel like when I say ridiculous, we're not months away, but we're also, as I dive deep into this, yes, we've gotten a lot done, but for example, the time necessary to figure out all the epoch, like giving back money to users and everything like that, I doubt that it's going to be one sprint. I feel like we're probably going to need another 2 sprints. So we have to be careful a little bit about that.
Okay, then you won't sleep and work at night as well.
I'm already not sleeping. This is very intense stuff, and yeah, I mean, just today I realized that we have a problem. Intermediate nodes, obviously, right? But intermediate nodes don't have the user information. So how can we pay back the person that put the intermediate tree node? We can't. So we have to. Anyways, so that's a little bit of stuff, a raw version of the type of like face punch or face clap that we sometimes realize. We'll solve it. It's not a big issue, but just another thing that we need to solve.
Cool. It seems like that's why I'm getting in dark. I mean, my picture I see.
Yeah, but the good thing is that the fee system and the same block execution are really the two last massively complicated things. Withdrawals are much simpler, really, than all of this. So
yeah,
I think that yeah, I feel like once we're done with these two big items, then we don't have any big item left, unless I'm missing something. Does anybody have any big item that they can think of?
yeah. The guys.
Let's talk about the Rust port.
Yeah. That's about.
All right.
Okay,
thank
cool.
you. Thank
Sam,
you.
thanks for comments.
Thank
Yeah,
you for the comments. And let's see the Rust port update. Anton, would you kick us off?
Yep. Hey everybody, Anton's here, and I'm gonna give a little introduction on the Rust port update. And today, unlike the previous ones, we actually have two people from the team giving you updates. So there is something new. That is because we've split our work into two parts. So as you might remember, last time we've talked a little bit about the plan, about the fact that we need to bring v23 changes into Rust DPP, integrate Rust DPP, and make tests, the previous tests from the platform, work with the new JS DPP. Right now, we're working on two main areas, and that's bringing all the changes from v23 into the Rust port, and the second one is making previous JS DPP tests work with the new Rust version of the library. Can you please switch to the next slide? Yeah, so right now I'm working personally on the integration of the Rust DPP into the platform, and making sure that all the previous tests that were in the platform are working with the new Rust implementation. And so far, we did the WASM build, so we still retain the compatibility with the existing JavaScript ecosystem. So the people who are already in the JavaScript ecosystem developing tools for browsers like extensions, wallets, and stuff like that aren't gonna notice that change. It will be like a very smooth transition. And so what I was working in the previous weeks is I've created a build, I've created a Rust build and made sure that it works with the whole platform. And I've integrated some smaller parts of the DPP to make sure that the cross-language barrier works. And that means that right now some smaller structures like identifier, metadata, and stuff works. Also, identities work right now. And after we've done with all that, we gonna make sure in the next sprint that all the bigger structures are working as well, exactly as expected, and there is exactly the same interface as was with the previous JavaScript implementation. Regarding v23 changes, we've broken down the porting kind of in two parts. Because it's a very large undertaking, so we've split it into two parts, part one and part two, and also we've split some bigger tasks into smaller ones. So right now we have about 20 tasks, and about 10 tasks from them are either merged or in review. And I'm gonna give word to Pavel, my teammate, so he is going to give you an update on the v23 porting effort.
Hello guys, this is Pavel. Yeah, I've been working in this sprint on porting changes from the protocol from version 23 into Rust implementation of protocol, as Anton said. So yeah, this is, well, very quick summary, right? We've been planning in the sprint to finish like 7 changes, or to port 7 changes, but actually we ended up with a pool of 8 changes because one change actually was unplanned. So more precisely, it is identity update transition, which had to be ported in this sprint. So yeah, at the end of the sprint, we have all this 8 changes, either 7 changes, either, as Anton said, in either done or merged, and one change from the planned scope is still in progress. So remaining part probably of the all stories from the entire scope for V23 ports will be left and planned to be completed in the next sprint, hopefully. So in terms of update port, I think this is all for me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Anton. Thank you, Pavel. So let's move on to questions. As I see, we have 2 questions in the queue. The first one is for Tenderdash. So for Tenderdash, is the same block execution a requirement for platform release? And what time gained? I guess what I mean, how quickly are platform blocks generated?
I can take that one. Same block execution is a requirement for platform release, but it's not because of the time gained. We do gain time, but it's not because of that it is a requirement. It is a requirement because we need to know the signed state of the recent block. Basically, we need to sign the state at the commit of the block. And basically, in next block execution, you can only know the signed state, well, 1 block later, creating kind of like a chicken and egg, not a chicken and egg, but a 1 offset at any time, making it impossible, well, not impossible, but very difficult to provide a proof of the current signed state. The way it could be done is create in Grovedb an off by like a double transaction, like a transaction on a transaction, making it 2 blocks long. But this was considered a very, very hacky solution. And, you can't actually have transactions on transactions, as far as I know, in our system, in RocksDB. We could have potentially used checkpoints, but this would have had a overhead on the overall system. And we decided that same block execution was the best way. And on top of that, in same block execution, we gain speed. So it does, instead of being required to wait 2 blocks, we really only have to be, we only need 1 block. Since our blocks are, if I'm not mistaken, around 7 seconds, Ivan, 7 seconds? Okay, well, I think they're around
actually it depends on there is no timeout. There is no time between the blocks. It's just like 1 second or something. And the block execution time depends on the state transitions on site. So basically,
I did think that there was a minimum time, but anyways, maybe I'm mistaken. Well,
1 second, 1 second between the blocks timeout.
Oh, that might be a little bit too optimistic on mainnet.
That's what we have right now. Yeah, we definitely need
but
to,
it might be. I believe that Cosmos uses 7 seconds, and we're using 1 second on testnet, but all of our nodes are pretty much at the same data center, so it isn't a very good test. Basically, we save 50% in time, TL. So whatever we end up as the block execution time, we save half of what it would have been if we had double. Okay, the next question is, for Grovedb, are all the costs fixed so that there is no way to game like trying to use up a bunch of storage and sell back at a better price? Is there a dip about this? Well, if you think that this isn't really a way to game it, because let's imagine you have one dash and you put it into value in storage. Well, it's not as if you're going to gain more value, because one dash will be one dash later, right? It would have been the same amount of value if you had just kept it in dash instead of stored something. However, we don't want the case where some people, let's say the price of dash goes up times 1,000, right? And one dash is worth $50,000. We don't want the case where there's a lot of people that are incentivized to remove data from early platform, mostly because, well, why? Like, they would remove data from early platform to get back money, and it would cause a lot of, I mean, that's not the philosophy of the system. So basically what happens is, if the price of Dash does go up and there is extra value contained in nodes, all extra value compared to the current fee multiplier is actually returned to master nodes. So, you know, if the price goes up, well, master nodes will receive more rewards when people delete value from platform by removing storage space. So I hope that answered your question. Is there a dip about this? Well, we have tons of dips on fees. The reason why we haven't released them is mostly because every single week we've realized a new thing that we needed to solve. And it's been kind of like an ever-growing thing. We didn't really want to release something and then have to constantly make modifications to the document. So we will generally probably release it once we have a more finished system. And you're welcome.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you for the answers and for all the teams presenting today. It's time to wrap it up. So I wish you a great rest of the day.
Yep, see you guys.
Bye-bye.